Blackwood Manor was a Gothic monolith, a testament to forgotten grandeur, now consumed by shadows and whispers of a haunted past. Its stone facade, weathered and cracked, loomed over the untamed gardens like a watchful gargoyle. Jonathan Graves, a historian with a thirst for the unexplained, stood before the manor. He felt a chill. Not from the crisp autumn air, but from an unseen presence. The house breathed, he swore, inhaling light and exhaling darkness. Jonathan adjusted his satchel, filled with notebooks and carefully preserved maps. He had come seeking answers, drawn by the manor's tragic history. Blackwood Manor, he knew, was not just a house. It was a vault of secrets, sealed tight by time and tragedy. As he stepped across the threshold, the heavy oak door groaning shut behind him, he felt a tremor of anticipation. The game, he realized, had already begun. Jonathan Graves was not a man easily spooked. His fascination with the past, particularly its darker corners, had led him to explore forgotten cemeteries and excavate ancient ruins. He had stared death in the face more times than he could count, yet he felt strangely alive in the presence of the unknown. Blackwood Manor, with its chilling legends and whispered rumors, was a siren call. He had come seeking the truth behind the manor's most enduring mystery: the disappearance of Lady Evangeline Blackwood. A century ago, she had vanished without a trace, leaving behind whispers of a broken heart and a malevolent entity that roamed the halls. Jonathan, armed with his knowledge and insatiable curiosity, was determined to unravel the truth. He believed that within the manor's decaying walls, within its very fabric, lay the answers he sought. The air inside Blackwood Manor was heavy, thick with the scent of decay and damp earth. Dust motes danced in the slivers of light that pierced through the boarded-up windows. Jonathan's footsteps echoed in the oppressive silence. He ran a hand along the cold, damp stone wall, his fingers tracing the outline of a long-ago inscription. As he explored the darkened hallways, each creaking step seemed to amplify the silence, and then he heard it. A scream, blood-curdling and primal, ripped through the stillness. It was a woman's voice filled with terror and unimaginable pain. Jonathan froze. His heart pounded in his chest. He strained to listen, his senses on high alert. The scream echoed through the manor, bouncing off the walls, seeming to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. It was a sound that spoke of unimaginable suffering, and it sent chills down Jonathan's spine. Driven by both fear and fascination, Jonathan delved into the history of Blackwood Manor. He spent countless hours poring over local archives, studying dusty records and yellowed newspaper clippings. He learned of the Blackwood family, once prominent figures in the community, now reduced to whispers and legends. He discovered the tragic tale of Lady Evangeline Blackwood, a woman known for her beauty and kindness. She had been deeply in love with a young artist, but their love was forbidden by her family. The artist had disappeared under mysterious circumstances, leaving Lady Evangeline heartbroken and alone. Jonathan learned of her descent into madness, her constant ramblings about a shadowy figure that haunted her steps. Then one stormy night she too vanished, leaving no trace behind. The rumors began, whispers of a curse, of a malevolent entity that claimed the Blackwood family one by one. Jonathan felt a growing sense of unease as he pieced together the fragments of Lady Evangeline's tragic story. Days turned into nights as Jonathan became consumed by his research. He explored every nook and cranny of the manor, his fingers tracing the outlines of faded portraits and his footsteps echoing through the silent halls. One afternoon, while examining a crumbling tapestry depicting the Blackwood family tree, he noticed an anomaly. There, hidden in plain sight, was a secret passage. It was concealed behind the tapestry, a narrow doorway leading to a forgotten wing of the manor. Jonathan's pulse quickened. He had a feeling this was no ordinary discovery. With bated breath, he pushed the tapestry aside and stepped into the darkness. The air grew colder, the silence heavier. He followed the passage, his footsteps echoing on the stone floor, until he reached a heavy wooden door. It was locked, but the wood was rotten with age. A single word was etched into the wood, barely visible beneath layers of dust. Evangeline. This was her private chamber, sealed away from the world. A place forbidden. Section 6. Behind sealed doors. Jonathan's heart pounded in his chest as he kicked open the door. It swung inward with a groan, revealing a small, dusty room. Moonlight streamed in through a cracked window, illuminating a writing desk, a four-poster bed draped in cobwebs, and a bookshelf filled with leather-bound journals. Jonathan's gaze fell upon a book lying open on the desk. It was Lady Evangeline's journal, her elegant script filling the aged pages. He carefully picked it up, his fingers trembling slightly. As he began to read, he felt a cold shiver run down his spine. Evangeline's words were filled with despair, with a growing terror of something she couldn't quite name. She wrote of shadows moving in the corners of her vision, of whispers that seemed to emanate from the walls themselves. She described a feeling of being watched, hunted by an unseen presence. Jonathan realized with a jolt that Evangeline had not simply vanished, she had been taken. Section 7. When the Manor Awakens. As Jonathan delved deeper into Evangeline's journal, he felt a shift in the atmosphere of Blackwood Manor. The silence became more profound, broken only by the creaking of the house itself. The shadows seemed to deepen, stretching and contorting as if they were alive. The air grew heavy, charged with an unseen energy that made it difficult to breathe. Jonathan noticed that the portraits lining the hallways seemed to follow him with their eyes. Their expressions, once stoic and proud, now held a hint of malice. The temperature plummeted, and a bone-chilling draft snaked through the manor, extinguishing his lantern and plunging him into darkness. He fumbled for his lighter, his heart pounding in his chest. When he finally ignited a flame, he found himself surrounded by a swirling vortex of dust and shadows. And then he heard it, a low, guttural growl that seemed to emanate from the very walls themselves. Blackwood Manor was no longer a house. It was a predator, and Jonathan had become its prey. Section 8. The Unmasking. Jonathan stumbled back, his mind reeling as the shadows coalesced into distinct forms. Figures began to emerge from the darkness, their features hidden behind grotesque masks. Some were skeletal and gaunt, their bony fingers tipped with claws. Others were twisted and demonic, their eyes glowing with an infernal light. They circled him, their movements fluid and predatory, their silence more terrifying than any scream. He found himself in the manor's grand ballroom. The once ornate space was now decaying and decrepit, cobwebs hanging from the chandeliers and dust covering the once polished floor. The masked figures closed in, their movements becoming more agitated, their growls more menacing. Jonathan realized with a growing sense of dread that this was no ordinary haunting. He had stumbled upon something ancient and evil, something that had been lying dormant within the walls of Blackwood Manor for centuries. Section 9. A deadly game begins. As the masked figures advanced, their true intentions became horrifyingly clear. This was not merely a haunting, it was a game. A deadly game of cat and mouse, with Jonathan as the unwilling participant. They moved with an eerie grace, their movements swift and silent, their presence suffocating. Jonathan knew that he was in grave danger. He was trapped within a nightmare, hunted by creatures from beyond the veil. He had to escape Blackwood Manor, but the house had other plans. It would not let him go easily, not while the game was still being played. Jonathan's every instinct screamed at him to run, to flee the suffocating presence of the masked figures, to escape the confines of the cursed manor. But something held him rooted to the spot. Was it fear, or a morbid curiosity to understand the rules of this deadly game? He didn't know the answer, but one thing was certain. Jonathan Graves was no longer merely a historian seeking answers. He was a player in a game of survival, and the stakes had never been higher. And the game had only just begun.